Story 1. Sometimes I just sit in the dark and think in my living room. My wife walks in and sees me sitting there on the couch, hands on my knees, just staring at nothing in particular ahead of me. Story 2. Former military, keeps to themselves, single and lives alone, doesn't leave the house for days. The whole time I'm in the house having a ball, throwing concerts for the cat and such. Story 3. My friends have long said the only reason they know I'm not a serial killer is because every time one is found, everyone that knew the killer says, "We had no idea." And all my friends would have to say, "We totally expected this." Story 4. I let the spiders that live in my house and on my porch alone if I don't see any bugs. If they don't do a good enough job catching the bugs, I give them 3 warnings until I kick them out to make room for more efficient spiders. Story 5. At night, my bedtime routine is taking a shower and putting on my pajamas. Then I turn on my bedroom television. I stand in front of my television watching YouTube or Hulu like it's a giant iPad for at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours. My close friends think it's insane. I love it, though. Story 6. Damn, artificial intelligence is going to steal this information and go off the charts with, "User may be a threat," because he bought a pink bike at the age of 4, just to impress a girl who likes room temperature flat soda. Story 7. Someone once called me a serial killer for eating string cheese without peeling it. I pointed out that a serial killer would more likely be into peeling foods than not. Story 8. A deep, detached indifference to people I do not know in most situations. Driving down the road, cars crash, sorry on my way to home or work and I am not stopping. A fight breaks out in the grocery store. People are hurting each other. Can I go to the checkout at the other end and still leave? A kid is screaming. Mommy is at her breaking point. Please shut your kid up. Insert social situation. Well, that is none of my business. There are exceptions, of course, but these are broad generalizations. Story 9. She was always so nice. Always helped if asked. Those who know me better. She also likes to collect knives and is fascinated with the human body. Story 10. I don't know. In the days before cell phones, I came across a lost and injured hiker in the jungle near my house. I ran to the neighbors and told them to phone for an ambulance and rescue team because someone was hurt. Later, they told me that they thought I had killed somebody. Who, me? Story 11. At Boy Scout camp, I used to catch flies and mosquitoes and pick their wings off to watch them crawl along on the ground helplessly, much akin to Icarus helplessly flailing in the rocks after his wings were melted. Story 12. My wind chimes I made out of my dead dog's bones. Maybe all my paintings too. And the fact that I have a sheep's brain and cow's eyeball in a jar full of ethanol. Story 13. I'm a misanthrope, and many people tend to translate that to prototype serial killer, just because the word means someone with a loathing for humanity. Story 14. I have been very intentionally expressive in my face my whole life and have gotten better with it over time. It's particularly in the eyes that you can truly shift how someone can determine your mood and intention without having to say a thing, nor having to feel them. It's really just close quarters acting. Controlling body language and face language independently from each other can be fun. Story 15. When I was about 6 years old at my grandfather's pool, I caught a wasp in a mostly full water bottle, sprayed a lot of insecticide into the bottle, and then closed it and sat there watching it die. That was a one-time occurrence. I don't know what I was thinking. Story 16. I work my life away at my job, and I no longer see the benefit. I don't exercise, take care of myself anymore, or enjoy anything at all. I can't remember what it's like to feel happy. I am sure I am a pathetic sight. Story 17. I'm the Federal Bureau of Investigation friend. A friend starts dating someone new, or their ex starts dating someone new. Give me very little information in an hour or so, and I'll be on Google Street View looking at their parents' house. Story 18. I'm the one where the neighbors would inevitably say, "She was so quiet, polite, and kept to herself a lot." That being said, people would suspect me based on the fact that I collect animal bones. I feel like in this context, it's worth noting that I live near woods, and I don't actually kill the animals. I just stumble upon their remains. Story 19. When I am really stressed or depressed, I watch necropsy and dissection videos to calm down. Gore does not bother me too much, and I love learning about how animals work and why they stop working. I think anatomy is super cool. Plus, my favorite channel is run by a really lovely, happy fellow that brings me joy to listen to. Enoch, the cow veterinarian, does other medical procedures as well, but also performs necropsies on dead cows. He has a beautiful technique while doing it. Story 20. In Morrowind, whenever I murder someone, I take their entire inventory and then drop anything I don't want in a pile next to them. What this looks like in-game is I've left a trail in my wake of naked dead people with their clothing in a nice, neat little pile next to their corpse like a psychopath with a really specific modus operandi. Story 21. I find it very amusing to say serial killer-like things with a completely straight face. For instance, I was talking with some friends about making art with bones. One of them recently bought a coyote skull, and I mentioned the idea of making wind chimes out of kneecaps. Kneecaps are a privilege, not a right. Story 22. I have a peculiar attention to detail. When I see someone, I can recall specific things they wore on a certain day because I am already shockingly good at body language reading. Story 23. I am so nice. People would say she was so nice. We never would have predicted it. I can't imagine any character traits of mine that could be aligned with serial killers. Story 24. I have a constant stream of violence and murder in my brain. When people talk about how they could probably use a pen to defend themselves, I love going into details like extremely detailed ways of using a pen to stab someone, which arteries to hit, and pulling the pen out for more damage. It really weirds some people out. Story 25. I eat my cereal with chocolate milk. I eat root beer floats with chocolate ice cream, and I don't cut my fingernails until one of them chips or breaks. So sometimes my pinky fingernails get kind of long. Story 26. I killed a baby mouse as a kid because I thought my dad would get angry if it got in the house. I asked my mom if I should, and she said to go ahead. I cried 3 to 4 hours after doing it. But if I was a serial killer, people would use that against me without the context. Story 27. Just making incidental eye contact with him rattled me, and in 25 years I have never been rattled by a student. Or I will give you $185 per hour for a year in Saudi Arabia, and I can have you on a plane tomorrow if you are game. They know the look just as well as I do, and they do not want any part of that. So they will just keep walking, and I doubt you will have to pull the trigger once all year. Story 28. Probably my bipolar 2 diagnosis would be enough to set some red flags off, along with my 8th grade psychological evaluation. I'm kind of a hazard to myself mostly, but when those mood swings set in, oh boy, that anger and rage is quite dangerous, unfortunately. Story 29. Honestly, people do tell me that I remind them of serial killers. I have animal body parts in preserved jars in my room, preserved insects displayed, and a bunch of horror movie posters. Also, I mainly listen to death metal, and most of my shirts are band shirts that have some type of blood and gore. I am quiet with very few friends. I have definitely been told that I should never become a suspect in a murder because the odds are kind of stacked against me here, profile-wise, laughing out loud. Story 30. Quiet, mostly polite, and keeps to themselves. Based on previous examples in the media, autism and bipolar disorder are often mistakenly perceived as traits associated with negative behavior. Story 31. I was watching a show with my brother when one of the more despicable characters met an excruciatingly painful fate. I was so enthusiastic about watching him suffer that my brother freaked out and left the room for a minute. Story 32. If we are going the more charming serial killer trait route, I have the odd capability of establishing trust and relating with almost anyone. Everyone I truly know knows it, and they would definitely know how I got that lady into the pit in my basement. I also use lotion daily. Story 33. I have a small collection of my deceased, dried pet fish and shrimp corpses. I also have a couple of jars of teeth. No human ones yet, but I am paying my siblings for theirs, hopefully soon. Story 34. I have an eidetic memory. I know where you live. I know your phone number by heart. I remember your birthday and your mother's, even though I've never met her. If I've ever seen your pay stub, I know your social security number and your employer's employer identification number, your work address, and your pay rate. I remember where you said your kids go to school, and I remember their first, middle, and last names. I remember everything you've ever said or done to me. I have a dissociative disorder. I don't remember knowing any of this. Story 35. Back in my days as a troublemaker, I was always the one that friends and acquaintances would run a plan by to make sure no detail was overlooked that could get them caught. I just watched a lot of crime, heist, and adventure movies and shows when I was a kid, and I had a penchant for solving puzzles and minimizing risk. Story 36. Constantly making jokes about deceased individuals in the crawl space or basement. If they actually showed up, more than one person would be like, you know, he was always joking about it. Story 37. My jokes can get really dark, like really, really dark. I'm not easily offended, and likely I like a bit of shock value, but it might give some pause to people looking back. But only if I decide to, yeah. Story 38. I am outrageously charming when I feel like I need to be. Not like salesman charming, like genuinely charming. If I want you to like me, you will. But there is no in-between. It's the warmth of 1,000 suns or absolute nothingness. If I didn't have all this firstborn people-pleasing Catholic guilt, I'd be quite manipulative, I think. Story 39. It could be milk goes first, cereal goes after, or I only own 3 pairs of socks and never wear matching ones, or I am not sentimental at all and will throw away everything except pictures. But who wants a drawing a toddler made that looks like scribble? According to my family, I am dangerous. Story 40. My friends and I beat a stray dog to death. We were probably around 7 or 8 years old. The dog had been terrorizing us all summer. It lived under an abandoned car that was in a grassy lot between 2 streets. The dog was very aggressive and would chase us if we rode our bikes down either street. One day it caught our friend and pulled him off his bike. It bit him multiple times in the thigh. His pants were ripped and covered in blood. We chased the dog away. Our friend limped home, and his mom applied home remedies to the wounds. We were fed up with this dog. The next day, we all got sticks and bats and went to its car. Came out to attack us, and we beat it down with our weapons. We weren't consciously trying to kill it. We stopped when it stopped fighting, and it limped back to its car and lay down. We came back later that day, and it was just lying down, breathing slowly. When we passed by the next day, it had died. Story 41. I smell people. Not like a snuffling dog. But if someone walks by and I'm curious about them, I'll inhale silently and see what they smell like. Generally, it's attractive women. I've always had a very sensitive nose, and I think I use my sense of smell more than most people. A lot of people smell bad. A lot of perfumes and colognes are common enough that I could tell you what people are wearing. Story 42. There was a time I was so delirious from being woken up by birds at the crack of dawn for weeks. I threw rocks at them while swearing profusely. Animal abuse is definitely on that list. I probably looked like a crazy person. Story 43. I genuinely had this kind of concern about myself because of the kind of mistakes I would make socially as a child. The pattern I noticed from serial killer documentaries is severe social ostracization was an element, and before I was an exchange student, those patterns looked similar enough to my own life that it made me worry about what kind of person I would have become had I not become an exchange student. I've definitely become an entirely different, more socially adjusted person both after the lessons from that exchange and also after starting to transition. The concern is no longer there, because even in the face of some intense pressure, my disgust tolerance has developed such that I'm pretty incapable of murder, let alone several of them. I have totally had times where I thought, what? Do I need to murder someone, go to prison in Europe so I don't go back to the United States during this period of time to stay safer? While fully knowing I wouldn't be able to follow through because I'd get too grossed out at both the moral betrayal to my own values and the literal logistics of what I imagine murder looks and feels like. The tactile sensation of stabbing someone probably doesn't feel that great, and I have very sensitive fingers. In summary, my ability to murder people is curtailed by the fact I don't like how pencil graphite feels on paper, and thus I imagine a knife entering someone's stomach or throat doesn't feel that great either. And some appeal to morality, but we all know it's the tactile feel that's the first thought that comes to mind. Actually, the serial killer trait that would make everyone say, "We should have known," is my ability to just talk about murder in this grotesque, nonchalant way. The irony, Story 44. During my school days, I was known for being easy to pick fights with, as I had, and to a much lesser extent still have, a rather explosive temper. It was extremely common for me to get suspended several times every few months due to altercations with other students who liked to make fun of me and harass me. When I switched schools, I kept that aggressiveness when dealing with others. So basically, I was either the quiet kid stereotype or a constantly on-edge, hyper-confrontational person. Story 45. I keep to myself. I don't generally like interacting with people, and I don't yawn when other people do with the contagious yawn thing. In reality, I wouldn't ever hurt anyone, firstly because I don't want to, but secondly because doing so would undermine the whole independence thing. I'm pretty sure I can't live an independent life in prison. People build their whole lives around social interactions and the people they love, so it baffles them when someone genuinely doesn't care about being on their own all the time. So if I were a serial killer, everyone would probably say they knew I was weird because I keep to myself, but I'm not, so it's fine.